This is VOA News. Via remote, I'm Marissa Melton. The United States has offered a deal to Russia aimed at bringing home WNBA star Brittany Griner and another jailed American, Paul Whelan. This according to Secretary of State Antony Blinken. In a sharp reversal of previous policy, Blinken also said he expects to speak with his Kremlin counterparts for the first time since before Russia invaded Ukraine to discuss the deal and other matters. Blinken's comments mark the first time the U.S. government has publicly revealed any concrete action it has taken to secure the release of Griner. Griner was arrested on drug-related charges at a Moscow airport in February. She testified at her trial. She did not offer details. Blinken did not offer details on the proposed deal outlined to the Russians, though a person familiar with the matter said the U.S. government has offered to trade convicted Russian arms dealer Victor Bout for Whelan and Griner. On Thursday, for the first time in weeks, Russia launched missile attacks on Ukraine's Kyiv and the northern Chernihiv region. Ukraine says the attacks are retaliation for its continued resistance. 15 people were wounded, 5 of them civilians, in the attack, according to a regional governor. Governor Alexei Kuleba linked the attacks to the Day of Statehood commemoration that Ukraine marked on Thursday for the first time. Meanwhile, Ukraine said it had launched an offensive to recapture the Kherson region that Russia took control of earlier in the war. President Joe Biden's administration is launching a renewed push for COVID-19 booster shots. He's pointed to the enhanced protections as they offer against severe illness as the highly transmissible B5 variant spreads through the country. VOA News. President Biden and Chinese President Xi Jinping spoke at length on Thursday morning amid tensions over a proposed visit to Taiwan by U.S. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi. The Chinese Foreign Ministry has warned that such a visit would be met with forceful measures. That's the phrase it used. The White House said President Biden underscored the fact that the United States policy on Taiwan has not changed. It also said the U.S. strongly opposes unilateral efforts to change the status quo or undermine peace and stability regarding Taiwan. U.S. lawmakers' trips to Taiwan are seen by Beijing as contradictory to Washington's One China policy, which recognizes Beijing as the sole government of China. Beijing views self-ruled Taiwan as part of Chinese territory. The UN Security Council has unanimously condemned Myanmar's executions of 4 political prisoners and called for an immediate halt to all forms of violence and, in its words, full respect for human rights and the rule of law. The statement, approved by all 15 council members, noted Myanmar had hanged the men after the Association of Southeast Asian Nations appealed for the sentences to be reconsidered. ASEAN has been leading global efforts to bring peace to Myanmar since the military takeover, but the bloc said this week the executions set back its efforts to facilitate dialogue. China is an important ally of Myanmar. It welcomed the Security Council's alignment of views with ASEAN's remarks after the executions, which diplomats said Beijing sought. The International Criminal Court unsealed an arrest warrant Thursday for a former Central African Republic government minister who is accused of war crimes and crimes against humanity. The suspect, Mohamed Noureddin Adam, is accused of committing crimes during his position as the country's Minister of Security between March 31st and August 22nd, 2013. Those violations included alleged acts of savagery, that's the term the court used, at detention centers in the capital of Bangui. Prosecutors say Adam was involved in torture, persecution, and forced disappearances and cruel treatment of prisoners at these detention centers. And U.S. officials say the bodies of 5 migrants have been found recovered in waters near the U.S. territory of Puerto Rico. The U.S. Coast Guard responded Thursday morning to a report of a makeshift vessel suspected of being used in human smuggling that dropped off a group of non-U.S. citizens in waters near the uninhabited Mona Island. Park rangers who found the bodies reported that 66 survivors made it safely ashore. Their nationalities were not clear. The remote, I'm Marissa Melton.
This is VOA News. Via remote, I'm Marissa Melton. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken spoke by telephone Friday with Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov, pressing him to accept a U.S. proposal to secure the release of American professional basketball player Brittany Griner and former U.S. Marine Paul Whelan. The call was the first conversation between the two top diplomats since Russia's invasion of Ukraine in late February, and the highest level known contact between the two countries since that time. U.S. government officials described the proposed terms of the swap, which was proposed in June, as sending convicted Russian arms trafficker Viktor Bout back to Moscow in exchange for the release of Americans Griner and Whelan. CNN reported Friday that Russia has requested that another Russian prisoner be added to the swap. The news agency cited multiple sources familiar with the discussions as saying Russia requested the inclusion of Vadim Krasikov, a former colonel from the country's domestic spy agency who was convicted of murder in Germany last year. Pope Francis has assailed the Catholic missionaries who supported what he called oppressive and unjust policies against indigenous peoples. AP correspondent Charles de Ledesma has more.
Francis has vowed to pursue truth and healing as he wraps up his pilgrimage to Canada by meeting with native delegations in far north Nunavut. Francis is hoping his apology tour of Canada will help the Catholic Church reconcile with Indigenous peoples, and has committed to continue on a path of healing to atone for the past. His apologies have received a mixed response, though, with some school survivors welcoming them and others saying far more needs to be done to correct past wrongs and pursue justice today.
This is VOA News. The governor of the south-central U.S. state of Kentucky said Friday at least 15 people are dead, and that number is expected to rise following rain-driven catastrophic flooding in the eastern part of the state. In an interview with the U.S. cable channel CNN, Governor Andy Beshear said he expects the death toll to at least double. The governor said emergency crews have continued to work around the clock to reach difficult-to-access areas from flooding that swept the area after heavy rains on Wednesday night into early Thursday. The flooding was triggered by heavy rains that fell throughout the central United States earlier this week, with as much as 30 centimeters falling in some areas. Kentucky state officials say the threat is not over, as another 8 to 10 centimeters of rain are possible in the area throughout Friday. And in neighboring West Virginia, Governor Jim Justice also declared a state of emergency in 6 counties because of flooding. There's a flood watch for those areas through Friday night local time. Rescuers searched for the missing in Iran on Friday after landslides and floods triggered by heavy rains killed at least 53 people, according to officials. Iran's Red Crescent Society told state TV that 16 people were still missing after 2 days of floods that have affected 400 towns and villages in 18 of Iran's 31 provinces. Witnesses and officials say at least 10 people were killed and more than 20 others injured Friday when al-Shabaab extremists attacked a town that sits on the Somali side of the border with Ethiopia. One of the witnesses said the militant fighters began their attack in Somalia using car bombs and mortar shells, then used guns as they fought opposing forces. At the time of the attack, members of Somalia's parliament were in the town to distribute food aid sent from Mogadishu to drought-affected residents. It was not clear if the government delegation was the target of the al-Shabaab attack. As Americans struggled the past few months with high prices for gas, oil companies took in record profits. AP Washington correspondent Sagar Magani has more.
President Biden called out oil companies last month.
Exxon made more money than God this year.
Or more money than it's ever made. ExxonMobil booked a nearly $18 billion profit in the second quarter, with revenue nearly $50 billion higher than in the same period last year. Its CEO attributes the success to investments in oil and gas fields and liquefied natural gas, which has been in high demand since Russia's Ukraine invasion. Chevron and Shell also set profit records last quarter. Sagar Magani, Washington.
This is Marissa Melton, VOA News.